Welcome, 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 everyone. Happy 2022. It's Nessa with Chat with Nessa, and I'm so happy and grateful now that we have this new year. This is my first Chat with Nessa of the year with my special guest, Miss Lisa Sanchez. Welcome, Lisa.
Well, thank you for having me and Happy New Year.
Yes, and I want to introduce everyone to you. This woman is really introduced to me by a good friend of mine, Sanchez Woodford, phenomenal woman in Jersey who I have known for about a year now. And she said, This woman is so dynamic, you've got to meet her. And I said, I've got to have her on Chat with Nessa. She's a certified life coach. She's also founder and CEO of Just Dig Into It, LLC, and author of Looking for Love in a Garbage Can. I can't wait to dig into these topics, Lisa.
I know everybody always asks me about that title, and we will definitely get into it.
Yes, and I see Miss Woodford. Mrs. Woodford is saying hi, Lisa, in the chat.
Oh, hi. Thank you,
Yeah,
Sansere.
and she is so Sansaray is phenomenal. I can't say enough about her. I met her last February, almost a year ago, and she's a phenomenal woman. Just like, and I said, anybody that she recommends phenomenal woman to phenomenal woman, I know that you're phenomenal. To be associated with Miss Sansaray, that you're your own phenomenal woman, just like she is. So I want to get started with these questions so we can get to know you a little bit better. I know you're on the West Coast. Okay.
Yes.
And it took me, I text you from the airport, girl. I'm trying to get back to the East Coast. They kept canceling my flights and we were trying to get back home. I came home a day late for vacation, but we made it. So
You
I'm so
made it
happy to meet you and to get to know you. We've been chatting for a couple months.
for
But I have
sure.
several questions for you as an entrepreneur and a woman who's making a shaker and a mover in the community. As a child, as a little girl, did you ever envision that you would become an author, entrepreneur, and a life coach? Were all these things in your vision board as a child growing up?
Not at all. I have to say, what I spent a lot of my time doing was surviving, honestly. I grew up in a very violent, chaotic, alcoholic environment. And so, as I describe in my book, Looking for Love in a Garbage Can, it's like I always felt like I had my dukes up, right? Surviving, trying to thrive. And so I never imagined that I would be an author, an entrepreneur, or even a life coach. And that really more developed when I published my book last year in March 2021. And I'm sure you'll ask me some more questions about the book. So,
Yes, yes. Can you tell me how your childhood has shaped your womanhood? We are the sum total of our experiences as a child. But how has that shaped your message that you have today, especially the message that when you wrote the book almost a year ago now, Looking for Love in a Garbage Can? How has that childhood shaped the message that you have today?
that's a great question. So, imagine this. Let me just set the stage, if I can, for a moment. That at the age of 6, I knew that something was going on in my house. I didn't know what it was, but I have this vivid picture of my dad on my mother's back beating her. And that little girl was shaping and forming into an insecure teenager who was broken, low self-worth and self-value. That was really my foundation. That was shaping me. So from childhood, and then now I'm a teenager, and then now a young adult, where I'm ill prepared really for relationships, for love relationships. And the way I showed up, I was a doormat, insecure, all of it. And it wasn't until I would say 14 years ago, now that I'm an adult, I'm well into my 40s at this point, I didn't recognize that I was showing up this way. And it was this one relationship where the guy dumped me like a bad habit. I thought my life was over. But it really was my awakening, that moment where I said, girl, you've got to get it together. So I went internal. I had to work on my internal wounds, childhood trauma. Imagine that I went through sexual assault, child molestation, my dad chasing us out of the house with a gun, All of these things were my lived experiences, and that traveled with me. I like to describe it as this wheelbarrow that I just stuffed with all of my emotions, and it traveled with me throughout my life, and that was shaping me. And once I decided, I made a choice to go internal. So that meant therapy, and I don't want anyone feeling bad or embarrassed about therapy. See somebody, talk to somebody, because you need a neutral person to help you sort through and process your lived experiences. And I did the work. I was journaling and reading and just doing some work on me. And I had to forgive my father too. That was part of the process. So all of that was shaping me.
Very, very powerful. Now, I read, because I know you have been featured in magazines, and I had never heard this term before. When did you realize that you had signs of an adult child of an alcoholic, ACOA? I never heard of that term before.
So I stumbled across that when I was in college. Somehow, throughout all of my lived experiences, I still found it in me to go to college. I was determined. And so I was working on a school paper. And naturally, I was doing a paper that I could relate to, something that was going on in my own lived experiences. And I'm doing my research and I'm reading like these bullet points: insecure, can't establish relationships, not assertive, sad, depressed, developing nervous conditions, which I did, a skin condition. And I was like, that's me. I'm an adult child of an alcoholic. And I tattooed that thing on my forehead, and I live that way. And that question really speaks to labels. Sometimes we can get so caught up in labels that they define us. It becomes who we are. And so what I decided to do with ACOA was change the meaning to a course of action. And that meant that I had to take control of me, take control of my choices, my decisions. And it became more about me and not my father. You know why? Because I could never change him. I couldn't change the alcoholic. I couldn't change my mother's codependency on my father, sort of his enabler for all of the nonsense we went through. But what I could control was me. And so that's when I knew I needed to not live by labels. I needed to break that and develop my own course of action. And with my course of action, it meant recognizing that I could actually be someone, that I could make a difference in this world, that I didn't have to just be the girl who's wounded, living, in shame and blame, because that doesn't serve anyone. And so I took charge.
Very, very powerful. I know you have mentioned in the article that I read as well, you have many storms, but you had a beacon of light that led you to realizing your dreams and goals. Can you talk about, how the storms of your life led you to the light to realize the dreams and goals you have now?
There's this part in my book where I'm 19. I just had my son, Brian, and I'm in the hospital. And I'm like, oh, crap. Looking at his little face, what am I going to do now? How am I going to survive bringing my baby into the world while I'm still living in the home with my father and all of his episodes? And the baby, bringing my son into the house, didn't change my father's attitude. He would still chase us all out of the house with a gun, baby in hand. So my beacon of light really was my son. I didn't want him to see me fail. I wanted him to be able to look back one day and say, even though my mom went through all of that, look at her now. And my son is so proud of me. The other thing I want to do is just balance my relationship with my father. Yes, my father impacted me in many ways. To understand my father is to understand where he came from. My dad came to the U.S. as a 21-year-old kid from Ecuador. He had probably a handful of English words in his vocabulary. And he came here for the American dream. And what he would say is that he left his family behind to live in poverty. And I think that followed my father throughout all of his life. Here I am in the US, and I've got my family behind in Ecuador who's blaming me for their poverty. But through it all, my father was still giving us life lessons. Go to college. You have to have a career, he'd say. My father had a very thick accent. You need a career so you can take care of yourself. He was always giving us life's lessons. So that was another beacon. My mother was another beacon because even though she was a victim of domestic violence, she somehow showed up being the best mother that I could ever imagine, had her own career, graduated from UCLA with a bachelor's degree. Like, she was still showing me examples of what a strong woman could be, even when she goes home from her workday, she's catching hell from my father. So that was another beacon. And the last beacon is I have to give a lot of thanks to the Finley family. And that was a family that took in my son when I was running for my life from my father. And what I learned was that while I was dropping my son off at this house for weeks on end, that people thought that I was abandoning my son. I was trying to protect my son while I made a way in this life to get us out of our circumstances. So I had a lot of beacons and didn't really think that I could do it. So I was always in fight, flight, fight, flight. And so while I would say my spirit was probably poor, my energy was probably poor, I was rich in perseverance, rich in tenacity, rich in my dogged determination to say, I will be somebody. Because when I told my father at 19 that I was pregnant, he looked at me and he said I would never be anything in life. And all I need is a challenge, y'all.
Yes, and how you have proved him so very wrong.
And he left this earth so proud of me. So I like to balance my relationship with my father. Yes, it was difficult, but I forgave my father. He did the best he could with what he had. And I didn't want to hold him hostage for how he treated us, because if I hold him hostage, I hold myself hostage, and I can't live with freedom.
Right. And you know what I found? That unforgiveness doesn't hurt the other person. You bind yourself up when you're walking in unforgiveness. You give them all the power and the control. So because you forgave your father, that set you free. Actually, and that's very,
Absolutely.
very, very, very powerful. Now, so let's talk about your book, because what you published it in March 2021, and Looking for Love in a Garbage Can: A Journey of Healing. Let's talk about the vision. Was this written over the years? Did you take some of the journals, your journaling? Was that part of you, the journals, was that part of you writing the book early on?
So as a kid and as a teenager, I took comfort in the written word. I was always finding a place for my thoughts, what I was going through, what I was experiencing. And so journaling and writing poetry became sort of a safe space for me. And then after going through all of these lived experiences, I knew I had it in me. I used to joke and tell people, well, you'll have to read about my experiences in my book. You'll just have to get the deets, if you will, in my book. And so after that breakup that I mentioned earlier is when I poured it all out, because I knew that I had something to share that was bigger than me, bigger than the embarrassing stories that I write about in my book. And I finished this book in 2011, and then I dropped the mic. I didn't have the courage to finish that book and publish it, is what I mean. My parents were still alive. I was revealing a lot of family secrets. I was revealing my dad's infidelity and the fact that there were 3 children that my father had while married to my mother. I mean, it was a lot. And so I walked away from it. For me, it felt like healing, part of my therapy, part of getting things off of my chest. But then this pandemic happened in 2020. And as we approached January 21, my business partner, Lori Gentos, wrote her book, published her book, and I was like, well, wait a minute. How can this be? So she really inspired my desire to just dust that book off. I read it all over again, hired some people to do the graphics and all of that. And by this time, my mom had passed away in 2015, and then my dad in 2017. And so I didn't have that insecurity about revealing some things while they were alive. And so I did it. And I tell you, it was so liberating. And I was getting messages from strangers who were like, thank you for your courage. Thank you for telling us your story. I went through exactly that. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I wanted. If I could just reach one person who could look at me and see their story,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so for me, that's what it was about. And so I really wanted to put my story out there and reach my hand back and grab folks who are still feeling stuck, who feel shameful about their lived experiences. And I'm here to tell you, it's liberating when you let it out.
Yeah, that's that journey of healing, right? Can you talk about that piece, that journey of healing, and what
Yeah.
that you share? Because a lot of people, they are partially healed, and I've been through some things. All of us have been through some things we have to be healed from, whether physically, emotionally, spiritually. Can you talk a little bit about your journey of healing message in your book that you have?
Yeah. So just imagine this sort of winding road for a minute, and you're starting that road or that journey at 6 years old. And I talked about how I was sort of shaping and building my self-esteem and my character, and how I was ill prepared to really enter this world. So I'm trekking along this journey, and here I am at 46, 47 years old in this relationship that I mentioned, that I thought I was going to marry this guy, I was going to be everything, I was going to be the best wife, still not recognizing that I was not well. So the journey really begins 14 years ago of working on my insides out, even having to, I would say, forgive myself for any choice or decision I ever made, because in the end, I did the best that I could with what I had. So I did a lot of reading, a lot of soul searching, praying, meditation, cleaning out. Imagine you clean out your closet or your garage or your house, throwing things out. I had to work on my journey, throwing things out: shame, blame, anxiety, anger, insecurity, self-doubt, all of it, just blowing it up, getting rid of all of it. And so when I think about the book, I talk about, in part 1, my childhood experiences. I needed to look my childhood face to face and feel comfortable in that truth. I'm not hiding it. I'm not sweeping it under the rug. It is out there. The other thing I needed to recognize in part 2 were my relationship choices along my journey. So all of this I'm taking along this path, because I needed to revisit each of those relationships and how I showed up and what I needed to do differently for a healthy relationship. Not relationships where I'm trying to fix somebody when I needed fixing myself. Codependency, because I ended up hooking up with people who were just like my father, alcoholics or drug addicts, right? And then the third part was really the healing part of my journey. This, what I'm telling you now, is the reading and the meditation and the journaling and taking it all in, exchanging the baggage for good inventory, high self-esteem, high self-worth, the gift of discernment. Because I didn't have the gift of discernment. If you thought I was cute, I thought you were cute too, right? And that really, there wasn't a real measuring stick. But when you get yourself right mentally and physically and spiritually, you know that you can keep people at the curb and you don't have to bring them in your house.
Yes, yes.
And the other thing too is I used to think of relationships as my drug of choice. Like for my mother, the way she coped, she shopped. The way I coped with all of the nonsense in my house is that as soon as I broke up with somebody, I already had a replacement.
Mm.
And I had to recognize that I could be comfortable just sitting still. I didn't need a relationship to fix me. I just needed to pause, process, and then prepare myself for the next relationship. So it's been a journey for sure. I always say there's pain in the discovery, but you have to be ready for the awakening. You have to be ready for all that you're going to put on the table, because the only way you're going to push through that pain is to just dig into it,
Yes.
get dirty, do the work, reclaim your power, and recognize that you already have a voice and a choice, and you are in control through self-empowerment, self-leadership, being self-led by you.
Yeah, so you said something very key, that you didn't need another relationship. You were whole within yourself already. And that is a true spiritual concept. You already, Lisa within herself was already whole, but until you paused and dealt with the pain, then came the healing, because you did self-introspection, which leads me to my next point. Now, you have many years in human resource management, but what was the vision behind Just Dig Into It LLC, your company, founder and CEO of your own company? What was the vision behind the company, and when did you start Just Dig Into It?
So the vision, I started it because I recognized that I see people at work who were just like me. You show up, you have all these lived experiences. And I remember 26 years ago when I started in HR, when it came to employee relations, we used to say, as soon as you hit the door at work, leave all your problems there. Well, what I've come to know after all of these years in HR is that that's just not realistic. People don't come to work with their resume only and their experience, or we like to say KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities. They come with their lived experiences, their bankruptcies, their divorces, their child care issues, their elderly care issue, all of it, they come to work with it. And we as HR practitioners can't be so insensitive to that we're not folding mental health and wellness into our HR programs. And so for an HR executive like me, we've been coaches for all of our careers. You can call it what you want, giving people guidance, but we've been coaches. And it just made sense to leverage my 26 years of experience and turn that into a life coach business where I could help people really dig in to their circumstances, get people unstuck from their circumstances. Because if you're not well, you can't possibly be of service to others. to your employer, to your supervisor, to your spouse, to your children. And so I started Just Dig Into It really in March 2021. So it's a new company. And the vision behind it really is to help people be whole, working from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're not our Instagrams, we're not our Facebooks where everything looks nice. We've got good food to eat, nice shoes and all that. That's nonsense. Work on your insides and
Yeah.
that will flourish outwardly, is what I like to say. So that's really the vision behind it. So just dig into it, get deep, get dirty. People like to say lean in, but I don't really know what that means. Is that your toe? Is that your shoulder? It doesn't seem to go far enough for me. And leaning into me seems like you're leaning into somebody else's stuff. Just dig into it means you've got to dig into your own stuff. Stop blaming others.
Yeah.
Oh, my dad, you know, he was so horrible. And now, you know, because of that, I've got to live my life like this. That's crap,
Yes, it is.
right? So you've got to dig deep. So that's the
And
concept and the
and
vision.
who's the best person to teach them this but you? After all the years, the journey of healing, then you are providing, you lived it. You are teaching and coaching others what you've already walked, and you can't teach what you haven't lived. And so
It's
you are
for
the
sure.
testimony that you lived it, you've written about it, and people will have a link to your book is on Amazon. There's a
It
link
is.
to your website at the end of this discussion as well, because people, I had told you right before we went live, I said I have several girlfriends across the country that are life coaches. And I can name, you know, Sanchez Woodward. She's a great spiritual coach. Cheryl in Dallas is a coach. Joy Hill is a coach. Lisa Sanchez is a coach. My girlfriend in Los Angeles, Carol Brewer, a ministry coach. Pastor Chilla Lewis is a coach. I can name on one hand how many powerful women I know that have lived this walk. God has healed them in their journey. They're reaching back. That's what you're doing. It's a ministry. You're reaching back and you're giving to others to help other people get free, because you've already been freed. So you're helping others find their freedom. And until you face and live in that pain, like you said, and acknowledge it, you can't begin to get healed. So that's a phenomenal service that you're providing, Lisa. I really do appreciate that. Everything for me is ministry, because my mother was a minister for 40 years. Okay. So
Oh,
that's why
wow.
for me, what you're doing is a ministry. You're helping people find healing. That's ministry. Very,
For
very
sure.
powerful. And at this time during the pandemic, have you seen a big increase in your business since you started it, since we're still in the pandemic?
Well, I've come into contact with a lot of people who really need a life coach, but they really haven't pulled the trigger. And I always say that people have to be ready for their awakening. So while I'm speaking with a lot of people, it hasn't really turned into this overwhelming demand, but it's coming. And I've got some other things in the works that I think will also help people. And we'll get a chance to talk about that another time.
Yes, and you and your business partner are coming back on the 20th to talk about,
Yes,
again. And then, of course, people, I want to list this everywhere. You're going to be on YouTube, and this is going to be podcasted. People, they'll have your website, how to reach out to you on your website, so they can schedule a consultation with you to get the services. Because, again, you have to have acknowledgement that you need help. And you have to have humility in order to reach out to say, yes, I need help. I need ministry. I need coaching. So to me,
for
it starts with
sure.
humility, and people, until they acknowledge that, they don't like to do. They know they need it, but
It's true. And it's funny because I went through decades of my life thinking it was the other people. It's that guy I was with. It's the other guy that I was with. Oh, it's my dad. You've got to look in the mirror, because the common denominator is you or me, right? I'm the one that keeps showing up in these
yeah,
places and spaces. And you've got to be ready to do the work, to dig in. And I can't wait to come back on the 20th, because Lori and I, we have such great nuggets. We're so excited about what we're doing and can't wait to share it.
I'm very excited about that already, getting excited. But I know you have years of wisdom in coaching others. And whether it's HR or professionally now as a certified life coach, what would be your message to anyone that is struggling right now? They're looking at us right now, they're listening, they have challenges in their life, have a lot of issues, and they need that breakthrough to a more productive and fulfilling life. What would be your key nuggets that you can give us as a professional life coach as we end this interview? To these people are broken, but they're just afraid to reach out. What would be your guidance or wisdom to them?
I would say your circumstances may seem very hard right now. It might even seem like you can never figure out a way to resolve it. But what I want people to understand is that no matter what you are experiencing, you can get through it. But you have to be willing to dig in and make some serious choices about what direction you want to go in. It's doable. You own the journey, not anybody else. So dig deep, make some good choices. And on the other side of trauma and abuse and anything else that you are experiencing, on the other side is a beautiful light and a beautiful life for you. So don't give up, persevere.
Yes, and they will have just dig into it. Your website will be listed, and your book is on Amazon. Look, Looking for Love in a Garbage Can: A Journey of Healing. That will be listed. Buy this woman's book because yeah, and I love the graphics. I love it. It's beautiful because
Yeah,
guess what? Everybody has their own journey of healing, right? And as a certified life coach, it's tied right to your book. You're trying to help them get on their journey of healing by coaching them to that journey. And they can also buy the book, but also schedule the time with you live to get the
absolutely.
help that they need. Who again, someone who's walking in healing and walking in wholeness, who better yet to share the message to help you on your journey but Lisa Sanchez. I am so happy and I'm so grateful for you because you know what? You had a lot of patience with me in December when I wasn't feeling well. I said, Lisa, I got to push it to January, but this is so worth the wait because what you're doing is phenomenal.
Thank
And I'd
you.
like to say thank you. I'm so excited with you and your business partner coming back to see me on the 20th about your message of explore, reshape, and ignite. I'm excited
Yes,
because there's a lot of people who need what you have right now in their lives. So I'm just saying to everybody right now, reach out. Her website will be listed. The link to the Amazon. You can purchase her book tonight on Amazon will be under this posting. And looking forward to this phenomenal woman coming back in a couple of weeks, Lisa. And I thank you for your time. Thank you for your message. Thank you for your ministry, which is what that is. And thank you for helping other people get to their healing, what they need to be whole.
absolutely. I see myself as an advocate for women and girls and people who are disenfranchised. It is my mission. I love the space of diversity, equity, inclusion, and culture. And the way we have rich experiences is by reaching back and helping others. And that's my purpose and my passion. And I thank you for having me.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to for continued relationships as things develop and grow with your companies, plural, your business partner, yourself.
Yes,
We're going to have you back. I've had people been over chat with Nessa more than once or twice. So as things develop over the coming months in 2022, you'll always have an open platform here to talk and chat with Nessa. So Lisa, we're going to stay in touch, and I'll
thank
see you in
you.
a couple of weeks. And thank you again for all that you do for the community and for women and for empowering the lives of others.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Sansere.
Yes, Sansaray. No, Sansaray was still watching me. Now, she is a dynamic woman in her own right, and you know that. So,
I do,
yes, and both of you are changing the lives of people every day. And so, thank you for that ministry and thank you for your life because you took tragedy and turned it into a testimony that helps set other people free. And that's truly living in your purpose.
for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll talk to you soon, Lisa. And everybody, look,
Okay.
no chat with Nessa next week, but Lisa and her business partner will be back on the 20th, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's Thursday the 20th, to talk about again, explore, reshape, and ignite. So be here to talk to Lisa and her business partner because she has another dynamic message. And please buy her book and look for this posting under my postings on Facebook will be the link to her page. Just dig into it. Get scheduled for some coaching, people. Get your healing and your journey in 2022. And also get that book. looking for love in a garbage can, and start your journey of healing with Miss Lisa Sanchez. Thank you and have a blessed evening, Lisa, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.